extremist groups are trying to provoke Israel into waging a war, of course, into Lebanon, which subsequently would be involving Hezbollah.
Yes.
Even Israel had acknowledged in official statements that it was not the work of Hezbollah. Here, I think I want to go a little bit backward. The past Israeli attacks against Lebanon, in South Lebanon, since 1967, at the beginning, of course, against Palestinian armed presence, but later on against Lebanese territory, has led, in fact, to the creation of resistance movement. So I think this is, in a way, it was a response to a continuous cycle of aggression and bombardment of Lebanon and basically of South Lebanon. So could people stay inactive year after year if they see their country and territory attacked by any other outsider or any other foreign power?
And that's a question I'd like to pose to you, Jeffrey Elderman. And I like to put that in the context of what I found interesting. This is a headline of the Jewish press, which said Israel's next war must start in Lebanon, in which the next confrontation must start with heavy bombing attacks that would minimize later damage to Israeli cities. Is that really what Israel is thinking of doing, you think? Is that a possibility? And they say it with such calm in this particular piece.
No, I frankly don't think that's what the Israeli government is thinking. The Israeli government, I think, and the Israeli people are far more concerned about the situation in Syria. Now, at the moment, it looks as if President Assad in Syria has the upper hand. And whatever one may think of President Assad, and goodness knows I've been critical of him, at least when he was or is in power, the border between Syria and Israel has been quiescent. And I think the best hope for the Israeli government is that President Assad triumphs in this civil war, bloody and terrible though it is, and this in turn, I think, will bring some stability to the Lebanese-Israeli border. That's my hope at any rate.
Judge Labaka, I need to ask you this because this has come out in this.
I think, no, if I may here interfere, I think the Syrian conflict has spilled over not only to Lebanon, to Jordan, and to the Sinai Peninsula. And I think we are witnessing a big dramatic development of the situation. And I'm afraid if the Syrian conflict is not brought quickly to an end, it will spill over to all the states, to most of the Middle Eastern countries, and also to the states, Arab states surrounding Israel.
Let me take a quick time out here.
Whilst I wouldn't actually...
Go ahead, Jeffrey Elderman, go ahead.
Whilst I wouldn't actually go that... whilst I wouldn't actually go as far as my colleague in Beirut, I do actually agree with the thrust of his last comments. I think that the civil war in Syria has spilled over into other countries. I think the situation in the Sinai Peninsula is somewhat different, but hopefully the military government now in charge of Egypt will be able to deal with that situation, as I'm led to believe it has promised or undertaken to the Israeli government in Jerusalem that it will do.
Very well. Quick time out here. Take a listen to our viewer comments as posted.
I think that if I may, if you allow me.
Sure, go ahead.
I think maybe at a point Israel is interested, of course, and has an interest to see the internal destruction of Syria, the weakening of its army. But also we have to acknowledge that the rise of hundreds of fundamentalist groups whose agenda now is against the Assad regime, but who could quickly turn against anybody, including Israel, and who are able to conduct an unconventional war, I mean terrorist attacks, that finally would threaten the whole Middle East. For this reason, I think it is very urgent that the international community attempts to put an end to that Syrian internal conflict, because I am afraid that the spillover could be very dramatic. Here I want to point out that Lebanon is hosting now more than 1 million refugees. Of course, we have to welcome them. They are fleeing their country, but we cannot ignore the security risks that also entails, also in terms of the whole Middle East stability, regional stability.
Very well. Now we're going to take a quick time out to listen to some of the viewer comments posted on the Facebook page. Let's take a listen.
The Lebanese army shall stand with Hezbollah to counter Israel. Don't expect any help from the UN. Israel, the UN, and the US are connected in every violation in the world. That is the reason why the UN cannot take any action.
Just some of the viewer comments there. Jeffrey Alderman, Israel has found a new friend. It is now out in the open, and that's Saudi Arabia, of which Saudi Arabia has given Lebanon recently $3 billion in aid. Now, I'd like to find out your views on this alliance vis-a-vis Lebanon.
I think this is very important, and you're quite right to raise this. There is incredible, though it might have seemed a year ago, or even 9 months ago, there is, I won't say an alliance, an understanding between the governments of Israel and Saudi Arabia, initially because of their joint concern over Iran. There has even been very informed speculation about Saudi Arabia giving the Israeli Air Force some sort of facility, we're not quite sure what, in Saudi Arabia should Israel, and this is a big question, should Israel choose to attack Iran. But so far as the Lebanon is concerned, I think the governments of Saudi Arabia and Israel are of one mind here. And I do agree with my colleague in Beirut that the rise of fanatical fundamentalist groups, particularly in the north of Syria on the Turkish border, does pose a threat to the whole of the region. And obviously Riyadh and Jerusalem have a joint interest in seeing that this particular fire is quenched as quickly as possible.
By the way, Jeffrey Alderman, a quick question, since you are steadfast on Jerusalem being the capital of Israel. Why is it that the United States doesn't have their embassy in Jerusalem and they have it in Tel Aviv?
Interestingly, the American Congress passed an act of Congress mandating that the embassy should be relocated from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. But owing to the quirks of the American Constitution, it's possible for successive American presidents to ignore this. So that's the answer to your question.
Very well. George Labaki, so our guest there says, yes, the alliance between Israel and Saudi Arabia, it's out in the open. Now, there's a deduction made based on the recent terrorist attacks that have happened inside Lebanon, the most prominent one being the one that targeted the Iranian embassy, the twin bomb blast that claimed the life of an Iranian diplomat. Now, if these two are an alliance, isn't there then by default an association that could be made with Israel also being behind this? We have a deduction here made that terrorist attacks in Lebanon were carried out to serve the interests of the Israeli regime. Do you see it that way? Do you agree with that?
Yes, let me first say that nobody is against strengthening the Lebanese army, so hopefully this will be respected. Past promises of aid from most Gulf countries were not or very partially respected. Now, concerning now the open alliance between Israel and Saudi Arabia, well, logically and objectively and rationally, when two sides are allied against a common target, so it's normal that they cooperate and conduct covert or open operations